You are now listening to Talking Transparency, the podcast where transparents talk transparently. Hosted by Thea Ross, Melissa Luxon, and Cody Connor.
Hey everybody, welcome back. I'm Melissa.
I'm Cody.
And I'm Thea.
On today's episode, we are talking transparently with Miss Victoria about her transition and journey as a trans woman. Welcome.
First, our upcoming events. March 17th is the next Trans Family Dinner. March 23rd is the next D&D group.
Yes.
And we had fun, although I don't remember you giving us our inspiration for our terrible drawings of our characters. So, yeah.
Double inspiration next time.
Double inspiration next time. FemFest is March 26th. March 28th is our financial literacy workshop. And on the 29th is Trans Day of Visibility at the Southeastern Transgender Resource Center from 11 a.m. to 8 p.m. with a ball afterwards.
I think it's actually 11 to 5 p.m.
11
and
to
then
5
from
and the
like
balls at 8?
The balls to 8. But I think like there's going to be some things going on in between. We'll see how it goes.
Well, everybody needs to go get ready for the ball, though.
Yes,
so
exactly.
That makes sense.
Absolutely.
I feel like that's the whole thing. People, come out, hang out, and then come afterwards. I know we are actually going to be there and tabling. The Calos Coalition will be, and we're actually going to be raffling and running the raffle. We'll be giving away a 55-inch screen TV.
Woo-hoo.
So if you would like to come, be sure to stay until about 4 o'clock. That's where we'll be raffling it off. So it'll be a great time.
Awesome.
Sounds exciting. And then in April so far, we have the D&D on the last Saturday of the month.
Yes.
And Trans Family Dinner on the third Sunday of the month.
Yes, sir.
Sounds fantastic. Awesome. Well, why don't we go ahead and get started talking with Miss Victoria?
Okay.
Welcome.
Hi. Thank you for having me here. I appreciate that.
Absolutely.
It's a lot of things that I'm looking at in my life, and through the help that I've had either here at Calos Coalition or STRC, I've been really rewarded with the people that I've had to deal with.
Yeah.
Yep.
How has Calos Coalition helped you?
The biggest thing is that I love the best is the Trans Family Dinner. Mm-hmm. The people there, I love talking to everybody. They have taken me in like a beautiful person, and every single one of them I had a discussion with. Mm-hmm. And so it's always open discussion on every subject you could throw at us. Mm-hmm. And they're really nice and beautiful people. One thing I really like over and the other meetings that I attend is I love the families. Mm-hmm. The families, they come in and they you see each one participate and take each other in and welcome each other, and it's really special. It is really special. My first one was when I met you, actually. Mm-hmm. Yes, and it really was special. And I know we were engaged in a conversation that we spoke about on our last episode. So we were pretty engaged, but one of the things that I spoke about was how much joy that even when we were in like deep discussion or, maybe just very heavy discussion, at times you could still hear everybody else in the other room, laughing, enjoying, talking, having a good time, coming inside, outside, and just really having a wonderful time. And it's really great. Yeah, it is. That's wonderful. Well, do you want to talk a little bit about how you transition? Sure. I am 63 years old now.
No, stop it.
63 years young.
63 years old.
Young.
And what I believe at 63, it was about time. My life, I've been raised in upstate New York. Family-oriented, parents divorced and remarried. Then I went in the Navy after high school, spent 14 years in the Navy, and that was an experience. Mm-hmm. During that time period, I married my wife, and I asked her to marry me 3 days after I met her, and in reality, she said no. But about nine months later, we got married. And we were married for 40 years.
Wow.
Wow.
I loved her dearly. There was times during that period where I knew that I wanted to be more feminine, more in transition into a woman. But my wife was not seeing eye to eye with that, and she wasn't comfortable. So because I loved her so much, I kept myself in control for her. And unfortunately, she passed away in January of last year. And I took a lot of grief, a lot of guilt in my life. I quit taking medicine. I quit taking care of myself. I ended up in the hospital. And they said if I'd have waited any longer, I probably would not have been here either. So I knew at that time something had to happen. And I needed to start taking care of myself. Well, not only physically take care of myself, but mentally take care of myself. And at that time, I decided, after talking to my neighbor, who is also a trans woman, she started talking to me, and I said, you know, you're right. Why am I holding back something that I need to do, need to be? And so I started transitioning on my own and finding groups that I could talk to. And of course, the Calos Coalition was one of those, and the STRC.
Yes, I think we actually met at the STRC.
Yeah, we did.
It was a great meeting that day, because I know you came in, and did you had someone with you, didn't you?
Yes, my good friend. She supported me. She was actually a friend of my daughter's for a long time, and she helped me considerably she actually took me to go get my first set of earrings. It was so great. So, you know, she brought me, they called in and they got the information for STRC. And so we decided, let's go down and see what it's all about. And so I went down and started talking. And I was able to put myself out there and let people know how I felt. That I was scared, of course, not ready. Personally, I don't know if I knew I wanted to be out, but in the end, it was like everybody just embracing me. Yes, I agree. And it was great. I went from, as a male, to having maybe one or two men that I could call my friends, and I knew they would actually die for me. As soon as I transitioned into a woman, I now had a group, a large group. I'm probably over 100 people right now that I can call and say, I need help. And they're there. They whether it be for makeup, clothes, personal feelings, it's really enlightening. I want to say companionship that I've got now, or the closeness. There's a certain love in the community that I'm now part of, and it makes me happy.
That's awesome. I do have a question. Your relationships prior to transition, cisgendered men, maintain those relationships still? How did that affect?
Okay. Well, the friends that I had at that point, they were mostly in the church I was going to at the time.
Okay.
And I took and decided not to make a commotion. I went to my good friend and the pastor, and I said to them, you know, this is how my life is progressing. And I want to know what your view is on this. Within 15 minutes, I was asked to leave. And unfortunately, I left behind many, many friends who I still consider my friends. And I hope they consider me a friend as well. but I have not been in contact with any of them except for one who doesn't live here anymore. But so I lost a lot of my friends at the time,
Your
and
social
close personal Christian friends that I counted on for comfort, especially after my wife passed.
Community, for sure.
But they dropped me, and no matter what they've done to me, I will always love them, and I hope they understand that. And I don't think they'll ever come and ask me, but it's okay. I need to move on. I need to make myself happy. I need to make others like me happy. It's important to me to make others happy.
Well, it was never about you ever stopping loving them. It was about you loving yourself.
Right. And through loving myself, I knew that any situation that I may get in with them they would come and disagree wholeheartedly with me, and I wasn't ready for that. And I don't think they were ready, because my faith is so strong that they could never tell me that I wasn't saved, which I know I am. Like I said, I love them all, even those who asked me to leave. Did they out me? Yeah, they did. The pastor and friend, they had to take it in front of the men's board and have a vote there. And then because I was as a trustee in the church, and a member, then they had to take it in front of the congregation and have a vote on whether I should be voted out. And I never got an answer, but I know they did, because they didn't contact me after that. But because I have such strong faith, I moved on. And I found people who agreed with my faith on how much love people can show. And as I grew, I found another place to go, another group that will take me in. And so far, I haven't had any issues at this new church. I don't plan on having any, but I also know that I'm easy to get along with.
Yes, you are.
Yeah.
And so my hope is that I can maintain that church relationship, because now I have a mission in my mind and going forward through my faith. And my mission is to bring other trans women of faith together and make this a safe place. As it is right now, it's not a safe place.
Right.
There's going to be a fight, and I hope it's not a big one. I have a meeting tomorrow, which is going to identify how much I can really get involved.
Now, is this with Pastor Eric?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, because I had a chance to talk with and meet Pastor Eric, was it probably last year?
Yeah.
And actually, when we started the Trans Family Dinner, Cody, you actually reached out and talked to Pastor Eric.
Yeah, this is a Grace.
Yes, a Grace.
Grace.
Yes.
Oh, Grace Bible Church? Oh, okay.
Beautiful people. I went in totally blind, because the girl that had invited me to go had to take care of her kid. And so I said, no, just go. Just go. I went into church. I was thoroughly adopted by two ladies. Right off the bat, they said, come sit with us. And I've been sitting with them ever since. The people greet me very politely, very nicely every time I go in. So I'm very happy with the reaction of the people there. I'm hoping to maintain that, because they're a bunch of beautiful people as well.
So I have just a little bit side note, but along that same, because I don't think I've had this conversation with you yet, and I'd love to get your take on this. So in other conversations that I've had with very religious people, I actually had this conversation with Mike Callan about how you can go through and through verses in the Bible very much set forth the interpretation that God is beyond gender, right? Trans.
Right.
And that very much you can see where God's perfect. We're commanded to be like God. And even in some places like Ephesians, when it talks about transforming into our godly form. What are your thoughts, just because I'm curious, on that concept of God being trans, and actually in a lot of ways through that interpretation, trans people being then one of the closest forms to God on earth?
Okay. My God, my faith is totally 100% given me by His Word, and that's where I have my faith in God's Word. And there's a verse in Galatians that says there'll be no difference between men or women. Okay? And that they will be in heaven with Him. And it's my interpretation that God is a loving God. I believe in Jesus Christ. I believe that my salvation is dependent on my faith in Him, that He died for me, and that He rose again, and He's waiting there for me to be in heaven. Then He's going to bring us all back here to earth, where we'll live eternity with Him. I believe He loves all people. I believe that faith in Him is what's going to maintain us going to heaven. I love Him dearly. He's led me into a terrific relationship with many, many people. And through my relationship with Him, and I will say mine, okay, I have grown. I know that He is approved of me being a trans woman because I believe there's a mission for me. And my mission is, like I said, is to bring other trans women to Him so that He may accept them. Now, I'm not saying just trans women, trans men, anyone that believes in Jesus Christ, I'd like to bring them in and get them in a church. Is that going to happen in my church? I don't know. And I'd like to say it would, okay? But I have to wait. I have to be patient. One thing that was said to me the other day is I'm putting myself in a box, okay? And in that box, I want to make them happy. And I'll just give you an example of that. In the church, there's 2 bathrooms downstairs, okay? There's a male and there's a female. And there's no way I'm going to go into a male bathroom. It's just not going to happen.
It's not right.
No.
Right.
And in the women's bathroom is where all the children go. Okay. So my avenue was to say, okay, I know there's other bathrooms here. So I asked. And they were so appreciative of me asking and taking consideration everybody's views. They rushed me right upstairs to where there were 2 unisex bathrooms, and there was another male and female upstairs. So it really worked out where they appreciated my courtesy, and I appreciated their courtesy for making a place for me. That made me really happy. But that's my box of making people happy and comfortable with me, and then through making them comfortable with me, then I can be in their group. Mm-hmm. So yes, it does put me in a box, and eventually I'll work out of that box. Mm-hmm. But for now, hopefully they understand where I'm coming from, that I want to be part of them as much as they want to be part of me.
I believe in meeting people where they are and having an understanding that you have to meet them where they are sometimes. And I think that you asking, you're going to find your own space where you are not going to ask permission. How do you feel about that, Thea?
We've talked about this many times,
Yes. Yeah.
Victoria, and I feel very strongly that we should not have to ask to exist in spaces. And I really think that, you're giving people the opportunity to say no. You're giving them the opportunity to say, please leave. And then also within the framework that you're having here, it's a sort of a concession that like somehow we're a danger around children. And while we're not, and there's no reason to be, I feel like there's this idea that like it's going to make them uncomfortable. And really to speak on that, there's nothing that you do that makes someone else feel something. You can't make someone feel, they feel something because they feel something. That's from them. And well, if they feel hate, if they feel disgust towards us, that's not a matter of anything you can do. You can play as much, politics,
Polite politics.
Yeah. You can do whatever that all day long, and that might get you a good ways away, but it's always just a matter of time until you're an irritant, until the box that they've kept you in, they're going to put a lid on and toss it out.
Well, and what's tough to accept, right, especially as a man, is that so much of this is really not about trans women or children or women. It's about how men are viewed for very justifiable ways.
How men walk through society.
Yes. Exactly. That's exactly what it is. Because, just like you were saying, the children don't go into the men's bathroom.
Right.
They go into the women's bathroom. Their problem,
the core problem, the root of this
the
issue.
core problem is because so many of them are unable to view you as who you are. They still view you as who you aren't.
Right.
And they associate that as dangerous. Men are dangerous. And everybody knows that. And that's where the real source of that is coming from. But that is also something that they don't want to face. They'd rather face the anger and
fear
and the fear on trans people than actually address the environment that men have created.
And I would push back on that just a little bit, Cody, because it's not just the matter of that men are the problem. There's also a uniqueness of transphobia. There's a unique trans misogyny that is at play that also goes with that. But I wouldn't argue that's not the primary motivator, that this idea they still see us men. But then also beyond seeing us as men, they see us as this sort of
predator.
Threats. The predator, I was going to say, but
and it's really unfortunate. It's absolutely unfortunate. And it's gross.
Like you might not see every man as a predator if you're someone like that, like necessarily. That depends on where you stand, but at the same time,
as a woman,
for a lot of those folks,
as a woman, pretty much every man.
When you distill it down to its crystal form, the reason why they see you as dangerous in the bathroom is because they still see you as a man.
Yes.
If they saw you as a woman, you would not be dangerous in the bathroom.
That's right. Like I wouldn't worry at all about being in the bathroom ever with a trans woman, not ever. But would I worry about a cisgendered male walking into a woman's bathroom? Yes, I absolutely would. I worry walking into a parking lot with a man. Like I mean, that is something that is a real reality. And the thing is the biggest offenders of these abuses are the same ones that are fucking transphobes.
Yeah, I just want to make sure that, because I'm not disagreeing. I just think it's really important to understand the unique intersection of trans identities, and that sometimes, regardless of whether we're seen as trans men or trans women, or whether we're seen as cis men, or just the existence of transness puts a unique cast over us that goes above and beyond. So it's not just that we're men. There isn't there, and like I said, within your framework, and again, this is probably the correct way to stay safe as a woman in America, is to generally, assume that most men are not safe, if not all men are unsafe. But at the same time, beyond that, if you do, let's say you're a more traditional, okay, we'll put this in, that's like you're in the church or something, you don't necessarily view every man as whatever, but at the same time, they're going to view every trans person as a pervert, as a threat, as a pedophile. And that is the real problem. And there's nothing that you can do to change their minds, Miss Victoria. And there's nothing I can do. We can be ourselves. We can shine. That's the best really we can do. And that's not a matter of even changing their minds. That's just a matter of walking through life.
What I'm thinking, and maybe it's just a me issue, okay, maybe it's not a big issue, but I want them to see that I'm willing to work with them so that they're willing to work with me. And by doing that, I may have to give up, and it's unfortunate that I'm saying this, but I may have to give up some of my freedom to make them know that I am acceptable. I will do this for you. Will you do this for me? Will you accept me as a woman if I give you a little space to learn?
Well, I think the most important part, right, is that's part of every relationship.
Okay.
Every relationship, no matter, how surface level or how intimate, that's part of the relationship. There's a little bit of give and take. I've been married to my wife 15 years now, and a lot of it's give and take.
Yep.
I sleep on this left side because when I sleep like this, I snore. I fold the towels this way when I fold the towels. And that's just part of it. Part of a relationship is that you give some of yourself, right?
Agree.
And so the most important thing just to remember in all of that process, because I 100% understand what you're saying, because I do that with everybody all of the time. The most important thing to remember about that process is that it's both ways, right? And that it's beneficial.
Right. Like walking into a restaurant, like existing in a public space and going into a restaurant, things like that. Like I think it comes down to that transactional situation, right? What's acceptable, and no one should ever ask to be able to be in a space. There's community with church. And I think, and now as someone who openly, I do not attend church anymore. I was a member of the church for a long time. And I do understand where you're coming from, but I also understand where Thea's coming from too. And saying, cause I'm definitely one of those people that's like, oh, I am here and hear me roar. And I will not, I'm going to be in your space, in this space, and you're not going to. And so I understand that too. And
but it's also just this other thing, this one last component is that we're talking about this group at the church as if they're a singular entity, and we're comparing them to you as a singular human. Really, we're talking about a group. And I believe in positivity and humanity. I believe that what you're doing does reach a lot of those people. But what I would stress is that when we talk about safety, it is not a matter of the group. It is a matter of one. And it really only takes one or a handful of catty, just over there, or that father over there who gets concerned. And then all of a sudden, the folks that are on the fence, well, so how many of them are going to speak up against the authority of the church?
Right.
Yeah.
And that's what scares me. Well, that's the thing. That is the absolute light that you carry with you, is that you're willing to do this and that you have to do this because it guides you in your faith. And I just always, when we talk about this, I never want to say that we're right or wrong, or that she's right, because it's a matter more of this is what she's chosen to do. And I respect that, but I do want you to be safe.
Yeah.
Well, it's also acknowledging that this is happening in a church.
Absolutely.
Which it's not the same as just regular public.
No.
That's right. It's not.
There
exactly
is
right.
a very specific group of people.
It's not
the building
transactional,
was
right? It's community.
Right.
Yeah, it's not transactional. It's not community.
You're building a relationship with these people.
It's not public, and so it is a little bit of a different exchange, right? And so there's that acknowledgement and what you have to go through as you're navigating this as well.
Right.
And you feel safe there. And that's, I think that's important.
Now I'm in the process of asking to belong to a program that's called Celebrate Recovery. And they break into a large group to start with, and then they break down to little groups, male, female, and so on.
The patriarchy.
I know where I want to be with the women. That's what I am, and that's where I want to be. But once again, making sure that they knew how I felt, I came out and I said, look, this is what I want to do. is it going to be all right? One response was, I need to ask my director. I said, I understand. That's understandable. Well, then I presented that to Eric as well in an email, and I have a meeting with him to talk about that tomorrow, and I'll see how that works out. I'm praying that everything works perfect. I'm praying that they see me for me and why I want to go there, because I got a lot of stuff that I can recover from, you know. I actually go to a grief meeting at the church now, and
There we go.
and they have accepted me in this
Number 2.
grief group very pleasantly, and I'm with a group of women in that, and it's very nice. And of course, my question, you know, I want to be part of this church, all of me.
That's right.
Not just
where you allow me to be.
Wherever you allow me to be. Absolutely. Now, I have to come across the question, if it's not a decision I'm comfortable with, do I stay or do I go? Or do I, because now I've built up such a friendship with people who have accepted me wholeheartedly, I don't really want to leave.
Right.
But I also have to take into effect, are they going to accept me as me and not just as another person coming in the door?
And here's the good news. The church that turned you away, they lost an amazing person and light. And no matter where you go, you will find people that will be attracted to that beauty and that light that comes from you. And no matter what happens at this particular church, I know and we know that there are churches in this community that you can go to beyond that.
Right.
That you can continue to find spaces. And one of the things that I think is most beautiful, even as someone who is an atheist, someone who doesn't have this sort of faith, you know, I wouldn't say I'm an atheist exactly, but at the same time, I think it's amazing that you aren't going to give up. If you keep fighting at grace, that's a choice. If not, I know you won't give up. And that's never a reflection of you, your light, or your faith. So it's wonderful.
Thank you.
Well, and it sounds like you already kind of have in your mind this desire to begin your own unique ministry, if you will, your own special ministry.
Yeah, I agree, because I know that what makes a difference in my life, and I believe can make a difference in everyone's life, trans woman, trans man, anyone, that there's a matter of faith, there's a matter of hope, there's a matter of grace that God has forwarded to me, and I can do nothing more but pass that on to those people who need it most. And I've seen the result of bad decisions, bad life, and my hope is that by my Spirit and by Jesus allowing me to continue to put His word out there, that I might be able to grab some of those people who are in the bottom valley of their life and pull them out and send them on to the right direction. And that's, in my mind, right now, that's my mission. And right now it is trans women, because that's who I'm mostly with all the time.
Well, speaking of...
you help where you are.
Yeah, that's where I am.
Well, speaking of people that like you're trying to pull up from the bottom, or like bad people, you were talking to Mike Callan at the Trans Family Dinner.
Yeah.
And when we talk about people that need grace and we want to show grace to, I was very impressed with your conversation. Would you want to talk a little bit about that?
Sure, that would be great. My thing with Mike was that he was talking with everybody concerning the ability for children to be able to use, trans children be able to use a woman's bathroom, and that was a big thing. And my idea with him was, what is your decision-making process? What is your mind going to make this decision? And of course, he came back with his faith, and that he's still working on that faith. So at that point, that opened the door for me, because I was able to say, okay, let's talk about your faith. What do you believe in? I says, are you religious or are you a Christian? And he came back and he said he was Christian. I says, okay, good. Then I came out and said, you know what religion is? I says, religion is a group of people put together, man-made rules to govern how they worship God. Faith is a whole different ball of wax. Faith is what I have in Jesus Christ. Faith is what they say they have in Jesus Christ. So in that faith, I said to Mike, I says, you know, as we treat each people as an individual, I says, how in your decision-making process by your faith can you say this trans child is different from this child? I says, they're each individuals. I says, and when they're individuals, you have to treat them as they are, not as you see them. So a trans girl or a trans boy, they need to be where they're comfortable and where they are safe. And if you can't make that decision, I says, then what are you going to do? Well, we'll take a look at it, is what was said. Okay?
It's a consideration.
Mm-hmm.
Right. Yeah, I'll take that under consideration.
Right. And when I asked him about a trans woman like myself coming out into a church, I says, after being there for 10 years and being asked to leave in 15 minutes, I says, what would you and your church do? How would you feel? Guess I didn't get an answer for that one.
You didn't get an answer for
No,
that
I did
one.
not.
No answer is an answer, though, in a way.
Yeah, no,
You're right.
That's
That's what your dad had said. Yes.
Yeah, no answer.
Your dad
That's how
said
my
you got
daughter-
the answer. You got the answer that he was going to give you, and so my hope is that someday all churches can see the light that I see. Is it going to happen? No, they're all got their rules.
Probably
they
not.
all have their
Not
beliefs.
while we're here, but we'll see. I mean, it's such a hard, thing to navigate, right?
It is.
Because me personally, I'm not a religious person. I'm not a Christian. You could say I have faith. I very much have faith in love.
Right.
I very much
and
do.
a lot of people do, as you said.
Yeah.
I mean, at the trans family dinner, that was one of the biggest things. I may not have a faith in God, but I believe there's love out there, and the love between people and how it progresses. It says, and I have to agree with them in that aspect. Yes, the love is a real thing. Yeah. The love I feel for Jesus is the same love that you feel for everybody else.
And that's what's interesting to me is so despite us having very different belief systems, right? We still very much arrive in the same place,
right?
On so many levels, yet not with like Mr. Callan.
No,
and he would claim to that's a difficult thing to navigate through sometimes.
Now the good thing is he did accept an invitation to come back with us sometime. And I'd like to really see that, because I'd like to have another discussion with him and to see what he's learned since this last family dinner. I'm hoping that he actually goes home and opens up his Bible and reads and then thinks, yeah, these are individuals. How can I do better for them?
I don't know, though. I think his Bible might get caught up in a content committee.
Content committee for sure.
You're right.
For sure. But it's the thing is that I don't think that Mr. Callan is. I don't know that he is capable of looking through any different lens at this point. I think temporarily he can temporarily enough to give a person standing in front of him empathy. But once that, it's like object permanence, right? Like once that person is gone, he doesn't give a shit. Like he doesn't, and he's unaffected in his life because his children and his grandchildren will never be comfortable sharing who they authentically are with him, no matter what he thinks or no matter how great of a relationship he thinks he has with his children. Because one thing I learned from Otto Frank and Frank's father, just like he said, was you never actually know your children, because you do not. I don't care how great of a relationship you have with your kids. You do not know your children the way you think you know your children. And so, and I know that and accept that. But people like Mike Callan would insist that they know their children, but I don't believe his children or grandchildren would ever be comfortable being their authentic selves with him.
Well, and it's funny because I sent an email to the school board this morning about the book policy thing. And I pointed out how one of the interesting things was how in awe I was at their ignorance in regard to teenagers. Because their solution to stop people from reading books that they don't want them to read was to take books that they had clearly labeled sexually explicit, make a list of them, and display that list prominently for every hormone-fueled teenager in the entire district to reference.
Okay, may I insert a fun fact here? While we've been sitting here recording, I received a text message from my best friend whose 12-year-old son at dinner just now they were as a family discussing the book policy. Now, these people are not politically involved, but this is my best friend. And her son, who I won't name for privacy reasons, has told his mom to text me right now and ask me for the list of books that they're not allowed to read. So it's hilarious to me. And guess what? School Board of Virginia Beach, I will be purchasing every book and gifting them to my best friend's son to read that is on whatever list you come up with or have. I mean, with, of course, permission from my best friend, because that's her mother. But but obviously she's encouraging this because she's texting me. But it's a solid point, right? These kids, it's like the forbidden fruit. How have you read the Bible and you don't have that very basic concept that I think is in the first book of the Bible?
Well, and that's the other part is that, the parents will now have the ability to stop the child. Well, the parents already knew, providing the parents with a list that already actually exists on all the different websites if you want a list. And you can already just put the book in. You can use the list that already exists, type the book in. You could even keyword it. I know because I went through and I keyworded all these different things, like all sorts of probably way more different things than they were able to figure out.
Than Paula Chang.
I've had a lot more non-Bible
fathers.
experience in my some things going on. Like, I Googled, I keyword searched some stuff for some books in the middle schools, and found nothing. I think some of the most outlandish things I may have found were something to help young girls in middle school understand their menstrual cycle. That was one of them.
What?
That was basically like the most probably the most like, oh, you're going to learn something about people's parts or anything out of all the stuff that I searched, and I searched some of the books from the list, and I searched keywords like pussy and vagina and blowjob and penis and
all the things.
And all of them, and it came up with like 2 books, and one of them was also something educational along the lines of going through puberty, and the other one was about helping girls at that age, which that's the age that they would be.
But did you Google, or not Google, but when in your book search in the schools, did you look for John Adams or the founding fathers or? George Washington. That was that was a solid search that parent who lives part-time in Florida, by the way, and only lives part-time in Virginia Beach, but comes and speaks at school board meetings. And by the way, their child is like a full-on ass adult, but they fly up to talk at school board meetings. But like, you know, what about like the Magna Carta? Did you type that in to see if there was anything on the
I didn't type
Sorry,
that in,
y'all.
no.
To our listeners, like, listen, these MAGA people, they are wild, y'all. They come up with the wildest stuff at school board meetings. So we're being facetious here when we're discussing this, but
Well, no, her argument was so asinine. She said there wasn't enough room in the libraries. They have to make a decision over what they will or won't, and they're taking out, like, you know,
Literally.
the Federation, what is it,
oh my God,
Papers?
the Federalist Papers. Like how biased librarians already are because the Federalist Papers aren't in our high school libraries. Bitch, that's because nobody wants to read them.
But then also, has she not understood there's computers and the internet available? And I
Wild.
guarantee you, like, everything that's in the public domain, you can go and
That's
find it. Like,
that's a big part of this whole thing that's getting missed is not only are they, you know, on this historic path through disaster that just keeps kind of, you know, you walk this path, it only leads to one place. It doesn't matter how small the steps you take, it still only leads to one place. But because they're not looking into the future, they're looking into the past, they can't even acknowledge the present.
Correct.
Right?
Correct. Like Genderqueer was published in 2018, I believe. And my oldest, who's trans non-binary, graduated in 2016. And I speak about genderqueer often because I wish as a parent that this book had been available to my child in high school. I wish it had been. I mean, it just hadn't been written yet, you know? But I'm so fiery now. If I can't imagine if my kids were in school and I was going through this, like how much
and how disconnected are you from your kid that you think your 13-year-old does not know anything about sex at all? Like,
Right.
has your 13-year-old left your house?
Right, exactly.
Do you have cable or internet access?
Right.
Has your 13-year-old talked to any other 13-year-old ever? Because if they have, they know about sex.
That's right. They already know about it. Yes. So yes,
what they know is that going to be accurate information? Because I just wanted to speak real quickly about what you're saying. You wish that your kids had that book. Like when I was coming out, the only way that I could find information was going to the internet, getting very wrong sources. And I'm very grateful nowadays that we have better online spaces for trans and queer youth and specific resources, because they were not available for me in the late 90s, early 2000s when I was going through.
Yep.
And if I had had access to a book like this or books that were able to help me, I would not have gone through so much pain. I would not have had so much questioning. I would have had an understanding, because even finding back then those groups, but that's what they really want. So I don't mean to go on.
But that's really the point, right?
The point.
Is that your 13-year-old does know about sex, and you're trying to pretend like you don't and deny that information and all of that stuff, and what you end up is somebody that is very uninformed and misinformed becoming an adult, and is uninformed, misinformed on one of the most important parts, especially of young life.
Yes.
And also in a lot of ways one of the most dangerous parts, especially of young life.
Absolutely.
I'd like to, with parents, I'd like to ask parents to please personally get involved with your children into what they can read and what they can't read, how they react. I'm a parent of a transgender girl, and I missed 10 years of her life for being a closed door. My faith at the time as a man closed a lot of windows to her that she saw just because of where I was going to church. But I missed 10 years of her life to the point she doesn't live with me anymore. And she moved on. And she moved on with her life, which is a great thing. I'm happy for her. But I missed so much of her life because I didn't get involved. And then now that I am involved, because I'm a trans woman, we have a better relationship now. We talk better and we have more to talk about, especially our clothes. But I just want parents to reach out, see what your child is doing, see what they can do. Don't let people make that decision for you. yes, the school board has their rules and what they govern and what they want. And yes, that's where we need to get involved and say, hey, straighten up. But in the end, we have to pay attention to our own kids, make sure they know what's out there, make sure what they feel is valuable, and then take that for action.
And that's a big part of what I have been preaching, if you will, at so many school board meetings, is that, you know, when you talk about forced outing policies, when you talk about book policies, and it's funny because it's the side pushing those that'll say we don't want to co-parent with the government. But that's exactly what that is.
Right.
That is you saying the government's going to parent for you because we don't actually think you can.
Right.
That's exactly what it is. They don't acknowledge that. The truth is that if you're super involved in your child's life, right? You're talking with your child, playing with your child, whatever that looks like at the age that they're at, right? Then you're not going to need the school to come to you and say your child's trans or any of that side of stuff. You're
going to know.
You're going to be in touch with what's going on with your child.
Absolutely.
You're not going to need that. If you're paying attention to what your child's doing, how your child's talking, even when having conversations with your child, you're going to know what your child's reading and what your child's doing. You know, you're never going to know everything, but you are certainly going to not have to have somebody else tell you,
Absolutely.
you know,
Absolutely.
everything about what's going on in your child's life.
Yep.
And that's what your job as a parent is. They've built this conversation around parental rights. And that's not what the conversation's about. This is a conversation about parental accountability and responsibility. And instead of society and our government and our leaders saying, parents, if you don't want your kids to read this book, then you don't let them.
That's right.
Absolutely.
Parents, if you want to know who your child is, then you better get to know them.
Talk to them.
That's right.
Then we would get what we wanted, right? Which is, or what they say they want too, right? Which is parents involved in their child's lives.
Right.
And we wouldn't get all of the other hate and distraction that this is really causing. You know, we're going the opposite way to get what is supposed to be the solution.
Right.
Well, they want us going the opposite way, backwards. They want us to go backwards in time. They just want to reverse everything.
You know, I don't think that you can know your kid enough to know whether they're trans or not. I think it's one of these things that I don't think there's a matter of like, because like when I think when I hear your words, I listen to them in two filters. One, very positive, I'm supportive. The other one is I'm listening to you as if I was like this transphobic parent. And if they believe that there's a level that they could be involved in their their child's life, they could know or suss out, that I don't want to necessarily, you know, validate that as a thing either, because being in a child's life isn't just a matter of showing up. Being in anyone's life is, I mean, that's the first part. That's the step one. The step two is how you show up. And I would argue that we have to bring this into consideration as well, because left in this discussion of parental rights is a shadow that's cast over the home about how they're actually treated and what they're told. And I don't necessarily want to say that it's the right of the government to come into these places, but if it's the right of these parents to come into public spaces and to libraries and bring these issues up and talk about their needs, then at what point do we start to say, well, what are you teaching your kid at home? What are you doing? Because it really does become like, if it is our burden as the public to worry about this, then they need to understand they're opening the door goes both ways. You want to have control over everyone else's kids, but you're going to have to give up control over your own kids, whether they realize it or not. And I think that we talk about slippery slopes, the steps, small or big, towards these issues. And I don't know whether they realize what they're doing, because even if we talk about another situation where we're in control of the school board, we have other people. Do we want to start banning books on their side? Like, this makes no sense from a policy standpoint at all. But I guess.
Eventually it distills itself down to, you know, because that's the only place this path goes.
Because there's always got to be somebody.
There's always got to be somebody to hate.
Yep, always got to be
That's
somebody
exactly
to hate.
what it is. And once you run out of, you know, if you want to take the line of that, the Christian nationalist view, if you will, versus the Christian love view, you know, just acknowledging that we're at a different line there, you know, that distills down to, once you've eliminated all of the non-Christians to hate, There's a lot of different Christians. Which ones of them do we start hating next? Who's the right Christian? And so, but that's the whole.
It's true.
It's a spiral that narrows itself down. And to your point, it is more not. There is more to it than just knowing your child, right? And that is safety, love, acceptance, all of those other interactions. What your child sees from you and how they interpret all of those different things. There's a lot of things that play into your child eventually first being able to express what they're feeling and then being comfortable and safe expressing what they're feeling. And that is more than just being there. It is
absolutely
very much how you are.
It's also
there.
what Melissa said earlier.
Yeah.
It's like we can't know what kids are thinking. We can't know what other people are thinking. And I just want to caution people who are listening to this because this is important, like you said, to be there exactly the way to show up and to go beyond that. But then when you do, understand that you don't have a right to that interior space as a parent or as another person, and that you don't have the right to control it. And that when you start from that framework and build out, it gives it gives more space for love to grow. It gives more space for autonomy to happen. And then the parents can actually discover who they are. It's kind of like a finger trap, if you will.
Right. Instead of trapping them into any kind of identity or label, giving them the space to grow and learn themselves and be the space they can come to you and talk to you about it and without judgment. Right. And also knowing, like, as a parent, I don't have all the answers, and I want to come from a loving place with my kids, and I just want my kids to be happy. And so my questions are always, are you happy? And, are you causing harm to others? No. Great. Then do what you need to do.
Well, and there's different levels of privacy.
There is.
That as a parent, you have to take into account. There always is, right? Like I do check in on my children's online activity. I do always know where they're at. I do listen to their conversations kind of with their friends on their games and all of that sort of stuff. I am aware of what they're doing. And very much of that is because they're not in a place to completely protect themselves. That's still part of my job.
Right.
But I also don't ask my daughter about what she's talked to with her therapist. I also still have a door on my bathroom, and I don't ask my children what they do in there for 45 minutes, especially now as they're going into their teenage years.
Right.
Because there's the space that I need to occupy to protect and provide, and there's the space that they still very much get because they get to be who they are and have their own identity and have that.
Correct.
And so it's just kind of knowing and being careful, being careful about where that line is.
Yeah, absolutely.
Not letting your fear cause you to cross that line. But also being right on that line when you need to be too.
Correct.
And
it's
so
boundaries.
It's those boundaries. And a lot of people on the other side of the conversation don't understand that. Right, you're either fully violating privacy,
right?
Like,
right.
Well, don't you just need to fully violate their privacy? Haven't you checked their Instagram? Well, yeah, I check their Instagram, but I don't make them tell me every conversation that they have with their friends. I don't make them tell me different things that are their own personal thoughts and stuff that they get. They get that.
Right.
I make them tell me where they're at.
Yep.
I make sure that I monitor them enough to
make sure that they're not like going to get
but
human
even
traffic.
More than that, I make sure to continuously talk to them and educate them about danger.
Right. Well, yes, because kids are vulnerable. And then our trans kids and really all of our LGBTQ kids are vulnerable, right? And so there is a sense of like hypervigilance, I think, sometimes too with our kids because of the added layer of danger, which is also from a parent's perspective, like I want my kids to be whoever they are, right? But I also want my kids to live like a full, beautiful life. And so it's painful as a parent to know that our kids are going to experience bigotry and hate and things just because they want to live in the world authentically as themselves. And so,
how much of that is just the expectation of whiteness in America? Like how much of that is like every minority, everybody that does not fit to a certain, everyone who's fat, everyone who's short, everyone, people who get outside to a certain degree, and the degrees to that and how extreme that is depends on the intersection. So I understand. But then like the fear that you feel, children feel it too. Like I didn't come out to my parents, to my father, who's very supportive, you know him, and he's changed very much in recent years, until I was 30 years old. And the reason wasn't because... And it's funny because I hear this so much. Parents, they get offended. Like, why didn't you tell me? How could you not tell me? What is it? How could I have not have known? They get this, and sometimes it's the child that is trying to protect the family. They have seen what their queerness means. They become to fear their own queerness, and then are trying to protect other people from it because they're afraid of what that means for them, and they're afraid of what that means for their family. So one of the best things I think that as a family that you can do is to be honest about those feelings and to address them. And that's why I think y'all are wonderful parents, by the way.
I think I've shared that actually with like, I think I've shared that I, my oldest came out, really, unfortunately, I feel like I kind of dragged them out to me, like was just within our family, because I knew that they, like that intrusive, the very last time I ever went through my children's phone was the one time that I found a text message, and I then had a conversation with my daughter and wanted to make sure that they knew that because the text message was them exposing their feelings to another girl. And I knew the text wasn't labeled, and my oldest will be here in 2 weeks and is going to be a guest on the show. So we can actually, I won't share too much of the story, but just know that like I started to watch them come more out as themselves in their journey. And say that, it started with them making clear boundaries that they use they, them pronouns. And I was like, okay, I absolutely will try, like, and I'm going to make an effort to do it, and I'm going to mess up, but like, I'm going to really, this is very important to you, and I'm going to do it. Right. And that I had to make a concerted effort to change my brain, but I had some of those feelings you were talking about, and offended is sure a word that you
Close
could
to
use,
it.
but I'm like, offended feels dirty because like I don't ever want to say my children offend me, like, or have offended me. But I was like, I've tried to be like a really supportive parent and to make sure that you can come to me with anything, and their journey was more they had to come out in their own time with that, and they kind of came out through social media. But because I'm like observant, paying attention, then I would kind of say, oh, can we talk about this, or they would bring something up to me, and there was that, like, I felt a little like, was I not a safe enough space? And it's hard not to put that on myself, and then but I hadn't even considered that, honestly, that, Alex may have also been doing some preserving for me, knowing my social circles, knowing, that the conversations, I mean, they knew what it was like when Alex, and Kevin got married, because my friends were all confused because they were like, but Alex is a lesbian. And now they're married to a man, and I was like, yeah, what do you want me to say? Like, that's their person, and that's all that matters.
And then there's other things too. Like, I'm worried, my father, he's come on one time in the next couple months or something, but he does, work with older folks, wealthier folks, people who tend to be more, when they're building and designing homes. So they tend to be more conservative in their politics. And I was worried about how me coming out could affect his business, how it's going to affect the livelihood of him being able to take care of himself and other people. And it's important to me that didn't. So the weight of all of these things are things that your children are considering. And if they're not considering, they are still subconscious factors about when they're considering their impact and they don't want to, they don't even want, sometimes it's too hot, too bright to
Right.
even stop and consider what could that mean for mom or dad. But you know that it means so much for you that even if it's unstated, unconscious in your mind,
Yeah.
that this is going to have ripples out for your grandma, for your parents, for all of everyone,
Right,
and
right.
how that means, and what, and even if you're facing that more from their perspective, like, okay, if I come out, what is that going to mean for me in my relationship with grandpa or whatever?
Right.
They're also thinking about what is that. I mean, why would grandpa feel that way?
Right.
Why would he be that way?
That was a thing for us. And so, like, that would ask, like, Victoria, like, how for you, so how many kids do you have?
I have 3.
You have 3 kids. Okay. And 1 trans and 2 others cisgendered. Okay. And how has, I mean, because
My transition with them.
Yeah. How's your transition been with them?
It's been really well with the 2 kids, the 2 girls. One lives at home with me,
Okay.
and one thing that I asked the other day, they refer to me as Dad,
Okay.
and that's fine.
Okay.
And my grandchildren is Pa. I'm good with that. That's fine.
Okay.
I will never be their mother. I can't be. Mom was too great. But they are supportive of me 100%. And my one daughter who doesn't live with me anymore, she when I told her, it was like the tears started over the phone. And she said, you don't understand. She says, I believe that I've been trans for the past 10 years. I says, but you never said anything to me. And it upset me to the point to where I knew that I was so closed off and so non-involved in her life that I would miss all this. She was going by her name, her new name, at work here before she even left. And so she felt unsafe. I did not give her that safe place. And I feel horrible about that. I really do. Now she's learning about herself, her new friends. The good news for her is that she just started HRT. She's ahead of me.
Yeah, but it's really helpful, right?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, so you guys can talk about this. And,
Oh, yeah. And so now I'm going, dang it, I was supposed to go first. But that's okay. She's happy where she's at. She's learning. And I'm learning to be myself a lot more open than I ever was before. Yeah. People out there are so beautiful in their own space.
Yeah.
And what I've come to realize, there are people out there I never knew existed. And it makes me happy. I just knowing new people, them getting to know me, it makes me happy. And
That's great.
My whole life is built around making sure that I'm not left behind or nobody else is left behind. I want them to know that there's somebody here to talk to, and that's my goal. Is that is to make sure they know I'm here. I will not go away. If I have to move from one church to another church, I will not go away.
Keep looking for your space.
Yeah,
I will find my space. I'll be there. Some places still make me feel uncomfortable. And it's my own mind telling me that I'm not comfortable there.
Yeah.
But I know better. I know there are churches here locally that I can go to, that I can, as a trans woman, be totally 100% accepted. But the thing is, I have to accept everything about them too.
Right. Well, 97% of communication.
And I have a lot to learn inside myself of what I'm willing to accept in my life. And as a, I hate keep bringing up that 63-year-old thing, but
well, I think the 63-year-old thing's actually really important. I mean, personally, I think it's really important. I was just going to say 97% of communication is body language. It's nonverbal. And when you aren't feeling safe, people don't have to say anything.
All right.
I feel like you pick that up, and more people I think should be a little bit more cognizant or maybe listen to that a little bit more, because the majority of the communication that we give is not verbal communication. They don't have to say that you're not welcome.
Right.
You know, you feel not welcome, and you feel people who authentically see you for who you are.
Right.
But I think the 63-year-old is actually a really important part of your journey, because I don't know, I think that it's never too late. I mean, same thing with tattoos. People say, "Oh, well, I don't have a tattoo," and I'm like, "Oh, it's never too late to get a tattoo, honey."
If you're still alive, you still have time to do
You still have time to be
Right.
Yeah.
you.
That's right. And I agree with that 100%. There are a lot of people still hiding out there.
There are so many people still.
And I hid because of love. Mm-hmm. I have to admit, I loved her.
Mm-hmm.
You know,
You loved her enough to give up
me.
yourself for
part of you. Mm-hmm.
Yep. And now she's gone, and
It's your time.
it's my time. And I will live it. As I was telling somebody the other day, I want to live to my fullest. Am I scared? Oh, yeah.
Of course.
I'd be dumb not to be scared.
Of course, yeah.
We're still vulnerable, you know, like the kids. We're still vulnerable at age 63.
Absolutely.
I mean,
Absolutely.
I have to admit, I fell in love and was wrong. I was shattered only a week ago.
Oh.
And fortunately, I have a community now who accept me, who love me, and say, grow up. And, you know, it's tough for me to say, hear somebody say, grow up. But yeah, I've got a lot to learn about my community. And this is my community now. And I take it, one thing that about the Calos Coalition, it's not just one person's coalition. As I was told, it's our coalition, and we grow with it. And it's a beautiful thing. And the people, when they come and tell me how much they love talking to me, it makes me feel welcome, and I love that.
I think people seeing you is important too, because so many people are locked up. They're still in hiding, like you said, inside their souls, inside their being. But when they see us, sometimes it hurts. But when young trans people see you, not just cis folks, not just trans people in hiding, when trans folks see, they see that there's a future and that it's never too late for anyone to change, not for themselves. And I think that's a lesson that can even go past just trans youth. That can go for everyone. Yeah. I think you're an inspiring person. And from the very night we met, I just was like, you are just the most beautiful person in the world, because you started to be yourself. Right. That light started to come out of you. And that's what I think we need to focus on as a society.
Agreed.
Yeah.
Agreed.
I agree.
So shall we move on to some news?
Some
news?
I know. Well, thank you so much, Miss Victoria. It's been really great talking with you, and thank you for sharing. I did want to just really quick though. You are a veteran, yes?
Yes.
You served in
The Navy.
and
14 years.
Fantastic.
Thank you
Okay,
for
well,
your service.
that's what the jet noise we hear over us. U.S. Navy.
Not a show in Virginia Beach without jets landing right on
I'm
top of it.
telling you,
Listening to that freedom flying overhead, it's always good.
The sound of freedom.
You just need to intermix it with like the national anthem and an eagle screech.
Yeah,
Okay, y'all, listen. I don't. You want to talk about at the school board meeting? Not me sitting down during the Pledge of Allegiance, and then I noticed a few people, like as people sat down, noticing that a few of us did not. You know what I mean? Those right wingers, they're like, oh, look at you, you
Kaepernicks.
I know. I was gonna say communist.
Okay,
But.
we went up to the Equality Virginia Day. I don't know if you saw. I didn't stand for the Pledge of Allegiance, and then also our producer Ty took a knee.
Oh yeah,
He was in the back of the crowd, but he took a knee.
Oh, I don't in the gallery when I'm up at the General Assembly. I don't stand either in the General Assembly. I don't stand either.
And we were introduced right before the Daughters of the Confederacy, by the way.
Excuse me?
Yes, this is a whole story that goes into this. I apologize.
Excuse me?
Oh, yes, ma'am.
It was so
The Daughters of the Confederacy were acknowledged in the General Assembly by who? Barry Knight? Because he's a son of the Confederacy, our delegate Knight. here in Virginia Beach?
I don't know. It was a Republican.
I forget
Of
exactly.
course it
who
was
did
a
the introduction.
Republican. These
I remember
people
the
are
R.
foul.
Well, so
they're mad because they're about to lose all their
that's
funding.
right. That's why they're there. They're about to lose all their taxes.
Yeah, they
They're
are.
about to have to pay property
Man,
tax
fuck
on
those
their big
Confederates.
$4 million building that they own down
Yep.
there.
Mm-hmm.
But it was a super awkward moment because we've been waiting. Sorry, so we've been waiting outside of the General Assembly area for like what seemed like the entirety of Purgatory.
Are you talking about
But it was really-
before going into the gallery?
Yes, but
Okay,
it was
yeah.
probably really
I was
only like a
dying.
half hour, 45 minutes, but it just felt like forever.
Yeah.
And they finally wave us in, but there's still not actually any really room for us.
Oh yeah, because those benches, man, and then people don't want to squeeze
They had
over.
like the benches reserved, so
They
we couldn't
do.
sit there. It was just like this open space, and so like part of our group went to the right, and part of our group went to the left, and then Thea and I kind of came in last, and there was no real right or left for us to go, and so we were just kind of standing there, right in front of the door,
Story of my life.
Oh, okay.
and as that happened. They acknowledged the Daughters of the Confederacy in the gallery.
Oh, not just acknowledge. They also acknowledged.
Listed all of their 14,000 members and how much money they donate and how they're about to do a special thing in their museums to acknowledge how black people served in the Civil War.
Oh, really?
And we're just...
Oh, are they gonna do a museum with all the skills that they learned? These
So-
people, they're disgusting. I hate them. Why? They're losers. I have bags and shoes that lasted longer than the freaking Confederacy.
But so what's happens is you stand up when they introduce you and acknowledge
Yes, you do, yeah.
Well, our group had no place to sit, so we were also standing.
Oh no!
and one of the leaders from the Equality Virginia literally dropped to the ground.
Drops. Like, just drops to the floor. There's no place for her to sit, but she's just not going to be standing with these ladies.
That would have been me. I'd have caused a scene up there in the gallery. I'd have been like, get me out of here.
And I just tried to put on my best I'm not with them look.
And like Speaker Don Scott, like y'all need to understand something. This is our first black speaker of the House in 405 years. And for that man to have to acknowledge
Well, he
this,
didn't have to say it wasn't him.
it wasn't him.
No, they were going through different...
Oh, it was the delegate that did it. Okay.
yeah.
Okay, good. Okay,
and so
good.
it wasn't him that had
But
to do it.
still, Don Scott was standing right there.
And
Also,
so-
I was upset because, like, what if someone thinks that there's a trans daughter of the Confederacy? That's the worst thing in the fucking world. Please, I disown all of the Daughters of the Confederacy for all
I
their
don't know.
times.
Maybe all the trans folks should have stood with them. It could have we could have really fucked them all up. Just people. You
they
see
get
what
all
I'm saying?
get all their funding cut off from the
Like get all their
praise.
funding cut off and be like, wait,
No more cook
I
money.
mean, we just have to flip it sometimes.
Eventually, they gave in and had us sit in the reserved bench.
Oh, they
They were
did.
finally like, okay, you're just going to stand there like awkward as hell in the
So
middle.
wait, they were empty benches,
Yes.
but they were
reserved.
making y'all stand,
Yeah.
even though they weren't. The people they were reserved for weren't there.
That's correct.
Right.
And so finally the guy's like, well, just sit there. And so we sit down. And then before they announce our group, they announce another group called SALT. Mm-hmm. It's like the Senior Association of Living Tribally or something.
I don't know what it's.
I
Don't ask me.
I probably didn't get that right. I got the SALT right.
Okay, gotcha.
And they stood up. It was great. It was senior group. But after you get introduced, the people walk out.
Yeah, they
right?
leave. Yeah.
Well, our group's now separated, right? Because there was no full space for us to sit. And the rest of our group is on the other side
Okay.
of the SALT group,
Right.
who is exiting at about the speed you would expect.
They were all
30
very
very
old.
old people to exit.
Wonderful, lovely people. I don't
Yeah, oh,
need
yes.
to be clear.
Lovely
Yes.
people.
but very
Aged.
old. And moving at that very leisureless, we have nowhere else to go pace. And I kind of know that we're probably on TV,
Yeah.
and like I really don't want to leapfrog through them.
Yeah,
I mean,
yeah.
what if I knock an old person over on TV, or
my.
even worse, like off of that balcony? Like
Yeeting
and
an
so
old person off
we're
the balcony at
just
the General
hoping
Assembly.
that they move fast enough for us to actually get to our party, and of course the Equality Virginia leader's just like,
come on,
we're like, we can't run an old person over.
Yes. Oh my god.
But we did. We made it.
You did it. You made it. You got acknowledged.
There's probably some clip of me like where you can obviously.
Oh, I'm
going to
go back and watch the recording of the. Oh, I'm going. I listen. I watch these recordings often. And I did not catch it on Monday, but I'm going to go back and look at. I'm going to go back and look. Like I need to. And probably, in these videos they tab out so it's real easy. You can just go find the session and click on it, and then you can it will they have the acknowledgments. You can literally just go to equality.
There's definitely some Virginia. Very awkward clips.
I love that.
Us,
I'm going to find them.
At the General Assembly area.
TikTok, stay tuned.
Yes.
I'm so glad you guys did that though. The General Assembly, it's so fancy. It's very huge building.
There was not a single picture of black person anywhere. It's amazing. They had king and queen,
yes.
Queen Elizabeth.
And don't they have the big statue? I think it's George Washington. Yeah, in the center where the gallery, yeah. And the old. Did you go inside? Did you see the scepter and the old?
I did. I went in
House
the old
of Delegates
rooms or whatever because I'm too
rooms.
ADHD to stand in the same
me
place.
Too. I don't I really don't.
I went basically everywhere I thought that somebody wouldn't kick me out or yell at me for.
Yep, pretty much. Yeah, that's it. I mean, and you pretty much have free reign up there at the Capitol. The last time I was there, I was walking from the General Assembly building to the Capitol building, which is where y'all were, the Capitol building. And Governor Youngkin was walking by me, and it's funny because I definitely look this way intentionally, but it doesn't do very well for me if I
I don't know if you could pull that look off accidentally.
I know. I know, right? I'm highly. Let me go this way. I'm highly recognizable, and Governor Youngkin has certainly made eye contact with me on multiple occasions at different events, and he definitely knows that I am a communist activist. So he saw me and he was like, "Nice to see you." And I'm awkwardly just trying to film him because I'm a troll. And so I'm just awkwardly trying to film him, and I clipped off the top of his head, but I did get him walking by me and being "Nice to see you." And his security people being walking all around him, and just, you're just walking and you just run into the governor just very casually, and then you're like, "Oh, you know who I am."
That never happens to me.
No.
Over casually running into the governor.
Casually running into the governor. Yeah. It's really funny. If people only knew how easily accessible elected officials really were.
Oh yeah, they're all just right there in that building.
They're all just right there. Also how many? Phone. When you just get involved, you get their phone numbers.
Oh yeah, no. People think that there's the phone numbers are listed. You could just call them.
Yeah, you can text them. And people think that there's a big barrier, and there's really not. And I think we should strike the fear in more politicians and let them know that we know that you're easily accessible. I mean, not because we're going to do anything to you, but because we were going to talk to you, of course. I'm just saying. So, speaking of dirtbag politicians, the Supreme Court today, right before we started recording the podcast, came out saying that they are going to take up the review of Trump's immunity claim. So I was just going to...
Of course they are. Yeah.
Of course they are. Jack Smith wanted the justices to reject the former president's delay gambit in the federal election interference case in Washington. But the Supreme Court has decided to review Donald Trump's far-fetched immunity claim, a move that will at least further delay the former president's federal election interference case from going to trial. The justices will hear oral arguments the week of April 22nd. At least they're going to do it on a kind of an emergency. That shadow docket that they got up there. The High Court will review the following question per the court's order, Wednesday granting review. And this is the question. Whether, and if so, to what extent does a former president enjoy presidential immunity from criminal prosecution for conduct alleged to involve official acts during his tenure in office? It sounds to me like the Supreme Court has decided to make a decision on whether every single future president of ours can be a criminal dictator or not.
Well, I mean,
because here the answer to this is like 0, and it's obvious. So did they decide to take this up just so that they could officially make a decision? Because to me, that would be, I would say, well, I mean, if this has never been brought into question, this needs to be addressed, and we need to say no.
Well, depending on how they address it, if they use that immunity, you can get rid of, how many of his charges. We may only have one future president. That's after Trump. It'll be a dictatorship from then
It
on.
literally would be a dictator. I mean, depending on what they come out with, it's pretty terrifying, to be honest. It says the U.S. Court of Appeals for the D.C. Circuit rejected Trump's claim, but instead of simply letting that thorough unanimous ruling stand, the justices want to get involved. It would be shocking if the High Court, even this court, reversed the D.C. Circuit, but further delay will likely result from the justices' decision to put their stamp on the matter. The case has been on hold since Trump launched a pretrial immunity appeal. He asked the Supreme Court to keep the case from going back to the U.S. District Judge Tanya Chutkan for trial while he continues to appeal the D.C. Circuit ruling. Just sidebar, the judge, Justice Chutkan, is such a badass, by the way. And she don't put up with none of Trump's bullshit, which is why he does not want it going back to her until he goes through this. Trump, of course, wants to push back the case for as long as possible in the hopes of winning the presidential election and making the prosecution go away. The case will remain on hold pending the justice's decision, which will come after the hearing in April. The court typically issues its final decisions of the term by July, y'all.
See, I don't see them granting him immunity.
I don't see them.
I don't see how they can.
I don't see how they can either.
Because once they grant him immunity, then they just have to drop everything against Biden immediately because presidential immunity. And so they can't.
Right.
They can't let him go without tying their hands too. And they're not going to give up that much power no matter what percentage of their party worships Trump.
I would say that that's a really, that's like you believe in normative politics because they don't already stop Biden. Biden is already locking up more people at the border and they're still not happy. Biden is already bombing all sorts of places, Palestine. We're supporting Israel. We're doing with as much as we possibly can and they're still complaining. There is no amount of, they don't care. It doesn't matter if he's immune or not. It doesn't matter because at their point, all of the stuff that they levy against Biden has always been BS. It's always been about Hunter Biden's laptop and all this crazy nonsense that never had basis of anything or had any sort of harm or substantial substance behind it. It was just always a smokescreen. And now, once they get what they really want, which is unchecked political power, I don't see how they'll be stopped. I mean, the Supreme Court itself, they're the ones that set this up back in the 1971, 1972 during the Buckley v. Valeo decision where they actually unlimited money as free speech and they've slowly taken over the courts. They've slowly taken over political parties. They've taken over different positions in power and they've got slow concessions. You got Citizens United, you've got McCutcheon, you've got other different things that have come since then that have expanded the power for individuals and rich folks to consolidate their power. And now it's a matter of now you can even hold us accountable.
Yeah, but they're not accountable. They're not in a place yet where stuff can't be undone. As they've themselves has proven, you can take any precedent and unturn it. Turn it on its head.
Not if everything's in fire.
No, they did it with Roe v. Wade. That was precedent. Nobody pretty much expected that. And they turned it right on its head. And they're still in that place. They haven't got so far. They haven't codified stuff into the Constitution or gotten so far that same stuff can't be immediately done to them with just one circular round of voting.
It's going to take about 20 to 40 years for a SCOTUS change if we don't add anybody to the Supreme Court, is what my understanding.
Well, yeah, and
that's terrifying to me because that's the rest of my life. And also, I'm not even sure if the country will last that long because it seems to me if they do vote against this, if they turn over the appellate court, which is the only reason why they take it up to begin with, then they're basically saying, yeah, we want a civil war. Because there's no way that anyone in this country is going to accept Donald Trump winning the election and with the idea that okay, now you're immune from criminal prosecution because people voted for you to be immune from that. At the point means there is no rule of law. The social contract has been broken.
Yes.
We are living in a dictatorship.
Right.
And that choice for the Supreme Court to even entertain that debate tells you right now that normative politics has gone out the window. There is no, they care about this, eat tit for tat, because they don't expect there to ever be a tit for tat.
Yeah, the only justification that I can come up with for them picking this up is to put, because they know that Donald Trump would, you know what I mean? Who knows what they would do? Who knows what he would do? But to put a period on the end of that sentence to make it very clear that no president ever has immunity for criminal acts while they're because that would literally mean that like President Biden could, order SEAL Team 6 to,
currently a Democrat
do some stuff.
that's
Who knows?
president.
I don't know.
If you're going to make it possible to be a dictator right now,
Right.
you make it possible for the person you don't want to be a dictator
But they
right now.
know Joe Biden won't do that. See, that's they
know
know that.
that-
True.
Yeah.
They know that he'll go through the electoral. They
know that
he'll concede. He'll turn over power.
They know that he'll go
Right.
through the process.
They do. Yep.
And so it's also, we also still have to acknowledge too, because the Supreme Court is working in tandem with conservative lawmakers to be able to do some of these things.
And interest groups like the ADF.
And interest groups
came right from it.
Absolutely. And so the biggest thing we could do, as you point out, the only way to overturn the Supreme Court in the next 20 years, the only way to change the way the Supreme Court is going to make decisions and interpret laws is to change the people writing those laws. And we still are in a position to do that.
Right.
Well, see, I kind of see this as like, is this going to be decided on the docket this year? Are they saying that, or are they going?
Yeah,
to, okay.
it's
They'll probably
April
move with
22nd.
it really fast because these trials want to go.
Yeah, it's
Then
April
I hope that you're
22nd,
right.
and it's July, and then July. I mean, that's the only thing that I could think of.
Because otherwise, it will mean civil war. It will mean like no matter what, no one will
our
believe in the
imagined
legitimacy of
order
election.
has collapsed. I mean, if we're talking about the rule of law here, right? I mean, at this point, it's the collapse of our imagined order.
Well, and that's the line that they're walking with this right now.
Yeah.
Like, if you do let Colorado take him off the ballot, then other states take him off the ballot. Then you have a whole section of states that say, we voted for him. He wasn't even on the ballot here, so he's our president.
That's right. Yep. Yep.
But at the same time, can you let anybody just be totally immune from the law?
Well,
Right.
my understanding is that it's not a matter of the state; it's the electoral college. And if this certain states don't send electors, for there's no way for them to get to the amount to that. So it's not a matter of we won our state, therefore, because that would be crazy. It's like us saying, okay, President Trump won this state, so they won the whole election.
Well, but that's what I'm
nonsensical.
saying. So if he's not on the ballot in Colorado, there's no way for him to get those electoral votes.
Yeah.
If he ends up not on the ballot in like 10 states, there's no way for him to get any electoral votes. Right? But he's still on the ballot in like those 40 others
And they can write in.
they can
But
write
that has never stopped. Historically, there have been Green Party candidates, other candidates that get on different state ballots, and those they weren't on the ballots on every state, every 50 state. That didn't
Right.
necessarily wasn't.
But he is going to be the
He will be the
party
Republican.
candidate.
Yeah, he will be the Republican.
There's
Party
all the other
candidate.
little
But then we
people.
would have to say that the Republican Party is a uniquely enfranchised entity with under the federal USFG. It's not a private political party that exists within its own as much as we exist and understand that that's how it's done, there is an actual, I understand, federal codification and constitutional protections that say the Republican and Democratic Party are the parties.
Right.
Regardless of because it would be crazy to do that. That would be like saying officially we're only going to have official parties, and I don't think we do that as a country, right?
No. I mean, people can write in and he can do all that, but he's going to be the official Republican Party candidate. And so while, yes, people will be able to vote for, I mean, people can write in
able
our
to
names.
vote for anybody that's
you
on
can
their
vote
state
anybody
ballot.
that's on their state ballot.
But-
And you can write in, from what I'm understanding, on some of these.
Depends on the state.
But at
depends on the
the
state,
end of
yeah.
the day, what they'll say is that this was the person that we had chosen for our national party race, and you didn't let people in 10 states vote on him.
Who gives a what they say?
They do.
They lost last time,
They do,
and
yeah.
they still went into
Yeah.
the January
They've,
6th. My
they've
point is,
lost,
at this point, Civil War
they've
seems
lost all
inevitable.
but once in the last 32 years. But what it does is it gives them a clear, legitimate excuse, right? They've lost every time for the last 32 years, but nothing like that has ever happened.
Correct.
Nothing that they could clearly say in their mind, whether we interpreted the same or not. Nothing where they could clearly say in their mind, you didn't let the rest of America vote on this person. And being able to say that very clearly is very different than just losing a bunch.
That's right.
Also, what do we know about the immunity that presidents have from international law? Like what? Like we know that the United States doesn't recognize like war crimes and those sorts of things. We actively don't even participate in that international court. But if we decide at the Supreme Court, the highest level of art, that a president isn't immune, are they basically going to have to rule? Well, they aren't immune from American law, but they're. I
mean, there's really no enforcement. There's literally no one. It's not enforceable either. Like,
there's
I guess they could go to the
international like rulings against people in countries that are just like, we wrote this down. You were very bad.
Yeah,
that's international law.
That's international law. Yeah, pretty much.
This was bad. We just wanted to make sure we told you. That's like
there's the Hague and stuff, and people have tried.
If it gets really bad, they'll why can't I think of it? Embargoes.
Oh, you could do.
I'm just trying to see Bush and Obama and Trump all in the Hague.
All in the Hague. Just put them all in the Hague.
Let's have a nice sunny summer in the Hague.
All in the Hague.
Victoria's over there laughing like, I am a former service member. I do not use it.
That's funny. Well, I do want to talk about Nex Benedict because if you remember when this first came out, because Nex passed away at the hospital the day after, that, the police, the Owasso police were like, oh, well, we need to get a toxicology report. And we don't, they essentially, the narrative came out that it wasn't related, like their death wasn't related to the, right. So, so as of today, police in Owasso, Oklahoma say they have not ruled out the fight at school as a cause of death of 16-year-old Nex Benedict earlier this month, after initially stating that the high schooler did not die as a result of trauma. So it is it's very telling that, of course, it was public outrage. And of course, now they're doing what they do and they're backing up their story and being like, well, okay, because they know they did all the things wrong. Benedict, whom friends say used he, him, and they, them pronouns, died suddenly on February 8th following an alleged attack at Owasso High School girls' bathroom the previous day. In video footage of a police interview released by the Owasso Police Department, the trans teen, who was of Choctaw ancestry, said he was physically beaten by 3 older girls. Benedict's mother, Sue, told The Independent that during the fight, Nex had hit his head on the floor and afterward had bruising around his eyes and scratches on the back of his head. But on February 21st, the Owasso Police Department said preliminary findings from Benedict's autopsy indicated they did not die as a result of trauma, leading some news media to report that the fight played no role in their death. In comments to NBC this week, OPD spokesperson Nick Boatman clarified that the department did not believe the fight was wholly unrelated to Benedict's death. We did not interpret that in any way, referring to the term trauma as it appeared in the medical report, and added that people shouldn't make assumptions either way. Boatman also told the NBC department has no timeline on when the toxicology reports will be completed, saying such reports can take months and confirm no arrests have been made nor charges filed in this case. Boatman said that OPD released its statement last week in response to a fury of misinformation on social media. Actually, was it misinformation or was it just you weren't putting out the right information, OPD? Including the allegation that Benedict needed to be carried to the school nurse's office on February 7th, which Boatman claimed was untrue. That allegation seemed to have originated from an anonymous source who spoke to a local news station shortly after Benedict's death, claiming to be the mother of the other victim of the attack. In body cam footage, the interview alleges 3 attackers were a girl and who had bullied them and their friends for at least a week by calling them names and throwing things at them because of the way we dress. Benedict said that he poured water on one of the girls in retaliation, after which they came at me and started beating the shit out of me, he recalled. Thompson could be heard in the video responding that if charges were filed, a court could find Benedict at fault because he initiated the fight, which would likely be seen as mutual. Roughly 40 of the teens' classmates at OHS staged a walkout on Monday protesting what they described as unchecked anti-LGBTQ plus bullying at their school. LGBTQ plus and Native communities throughout Oklahoma have mourned Benedict's untimely passing as adults and students alike gave voice to their grief at a candlelight vigil. So, waiting on the toxicology report, but now that at least they're backtracking and saying that it could be.
They have to backtrack now, right?
They do.
Because when you're first doing this, when it's right out the gate, it's not national news yet.
That's right.
It's not all the heat yet. But what it is somebody saying maybe, hey, if this comes back as that fight killed this kid, we are going to be in a whole world of shit.
Oh.
And so let's err towards that side. Oh, but now it has blown up. Now there's plenty of people sending requests to the FBI and all of that. This must be fully investigated by outside sources and all of that. So now you do have to backtrack and put yourself in a position, because if you have, or if you do anything wrong or under the radar and can get caught for it right now, you're going to get fried.
Yeah.
And that heat right now is not even just in that little Owasso High School. That Owasso High School and the school board above it and the Naya Rychek.
Oh, yeah. Chaya Rychek.
Rychek.
Libs of TikTok.
Yeah.
And the
being
Library
above
Media
that
Committee.
board,
Yep.
all the way up to Governor Stitt. All of that.
All of it.
This is one of those times where, you know, the fire shoots right back up the hole.
Yep, absolutely. So they, at least from, hopefully we've got.
And I want to touch on the splashing water thing, because I have seen that so frickin' much. Oh, well, she started it. Oh, so she splashed water on somebody, and that means it's just okay that she's dead. He's dead. I'm sorry.
Yeah. It's ludicrous.
That is just infuriating,
right?
Especially when you're just not acknowledging a whole part of society, even regards into that bullying scenario specifically.
And the
how
violence.
Many movies can you find with just a quick search where the kid being bullied throws water or a drink
or something benign
on the bully.
And then the result is extreme violence, which tells you that the disdain and hate within that person for this human is present. To be that violent with someone, right?
Well, and the people just willing to excuse and jump in there, they deserved it. I mean, because they splashed these people who were making fun of them with water. They deserved this beating, and all of that is just that's disgusting.
It's disgusting. Yeah, it's really disgusting. So, justice for Nex. And I think that is probably about where we will wrap up.
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah, I think it's a good spot to wrap up.
I think if there's one thing I can say before we go about this, is that I don't understand how anybody could say that there aren't like trauma or defensive wounds when there are scratches on the head and bruises on the face and all these sorts of things. I mean, those are just demonstrably at odds.
And there's another victim. I actually didn't even realize that until I just read that article, that there was another victim also in the bathroom as well. And so, there's like a witness and another victim.
And this went on for a week, supposedly.
That's why the Benedict family is doing their own outside investigation.
Yes,
is because they can't trust their local sources, because it's actually within that government's best interest, from the governor all the way down to the school principal, to cover that up.
And the police only solve 40% of the crimes anyways, so...
What do you think, Miss Victoria? Before we sign off, do you have any thoughts on what happened to Nex Benedict?
I really don't. I want to say I was more informed than I am, and I'm not. But I do know that they deserve a safe space, and violence. The violence is way over. Throwing water on somebody, it's unbelievable that somebody should be beaten to death over where they're at.
Yeah.
Regardless of whether they belong there or not, but to be beat to death for
being themselves.
For being themselves.
Themselves.
That's
absolutely. Right. That scares me daily, just personally in my own life, of being in the right place at the right time or the wrong time.
Right place, wrong time.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I know.
Well, thank you for joining us, and thank you for sharing your story.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
I appreciate you.
And thank you to our viewers for joining us. I know that it is challenging, a hard time in the community right now, but I want everybody to remember that trans joy defeats hate every time.
This podcast is brought to you in partnership with Collective Tattoo and the Calos Coalition. We are listener supported, so if you like the show, please consider donating to us on Patreon at patreon.com/talkingtransparency. Like, share, and subscribe across social media, and be sure to visit our Linktree at linktree.com/talkingtrans.